I'm Dan Ewen, and if I'm never heard from again, thoroughly investigate Jake Hogan.
Don't be alone with Jake Hogan.
Hey friends, welcome to Don't Be Alone with Jake Hogan. I am your host, Jake Hogan, and I'm really happy that you're here. We've had a lot of great reactions to the show lately. It's making me feel good, although you wouldn't know it from me, because I feel tired today, and I have bloodshot eye, which I don't know about. Maybe this is the beginning of the end. This may be the last you'll see of me, but I hope not. I hope it's just a temporary phase where I'm just a little sleepy. I want to talk about my guest who's coming up today. My guest is named Dan Ewen. He's a fantastic writer, kind of a self-made writer, came from Georgia to sort of break into the movie and television business, and he's been doing it very well. He's got a new show coming out called Clean Slate on Amazon Prime. He has a movie that just got released as we speak called Dear Santa, starring Jack Black. He's much busier than I am, so I'm in a way jealous. But in another way, I am not jealous because he had a much tougher upbringing than I did. He came from no money. He and his mom and his brother came from a really small, poor area in Athens, Georgia. And, you know, when he describes his childhood, it feels so much different than my childhood. And I think, am I missing something? Is there some bit of grit or determination that he has that I don't have? When things go south, which eventually they do for all of us, will I be prepared for the bad times? Because they've been pretty good up until now. That's my question that I will ask Dan, and we'll also find out about his life and his theories about humanity. And he's just a great, great human being, and I'm thrilled you're going to get a chance to get to know him the way I do. So we'll be right back with Dan right after this.
Don't be alone with Jake Hogan.
I'd like to welcome you to Don't Be Alone with Jake Hogan. Now it's Dan Ewen, right?
Like you win the game, yes.
Like you win the game. All right. And for our viewers or listeners, or the people who hear about this broadcast from other people,
right,
but I like to call third-party listeners, people who don't actually listen, but who hear about it from other people.
They get paraphrased to them.
Paraphrased to, exactly. How do we know each other? We know each other mainly and first formally through the world of improv.
Yes, for
Isn't that weird?
Long time now.
Okay, so now when I met you, I thought, oh, funny improviser. I think I knew Kim before I knew you.
Yes, that would make sense.
And then there's his lovely wife, Kim.
My lovely wife, who started at our shared improv theater 6 months before I did.
And then I met you, and then I didn't know for many, many, many years that you were a writer. How is that possible?
Well, I don't know. We had a pretty eclectic improv theater.
Yeah.
There was a carpenter next to a
two comedy
accounts
writers,
payable clerk.
two working comedy writers in the same room? You'd think we'd be sharing notes.
Well, you were a transformer. Y'all were on hollowed ground. You didn't even. It was nerve-wracking just to speak to a transformer.
My improv group is called the Transformers, and we've been together for about 45 years, some enormous number of things. We're all expatriate groundlings who were kicked out of the groundlings in one way or another, and then we formed our own improv group. So if you're in town on once a month at the Fanatic Salon, please feel free to come see us. And one of the three other groups that performs with us is the Waterbrains. That's your group.
We have shared a bill.
Yes.
For
20 years?
Yeah.
More. Yeah.
But yeah, so an improv has just been, gosh, I mean, even in life, I mean, and what we do,
yes,
where we are constantly thrown awful notes or awful ideas by God knows who ended up working in comedy or being an exec in the comedy world.
To be able to roll with the flow of these things and say yes and to things that are, not show ruining notes. The show ruining notes you have to fight.
You have to fight that. But then in some notes, you want to find a way to say, yes, that.
Right.
And surreptitiously make it not that.
Yes.
Or as much that where they feel like, all right, I earned my development job this week.
This is advice to all people. If you're getting a note that you don't understand, that you think this is ruining the show, I just repeat it Okay, so you want a talking monkey in the show. How would that flow with this Supreme Court movie we have? Like, how does that intonally, like, how do you see it flowing together? And then they'll often change the note from talking monkey to I'm bored at this on these pages.
Oh, interesting.
And they'll figure it out. Because you ask them, you put it on them and say, okay, well, why talking monkey? I would love to do it. I just don't, I want to see how it flows, how you're seeing it. And then when you ask them to get deep down in it, they start to.
That's a great method for getting them to backtrack. And the other, what I like to do is, I always have found myself sitting in a room, and I've written series stuff and feature stuff, and I can feel myself sitting in a room. I need to stop. I need to slow down. Sitting in a room, and people are throwing out notes that all elongate the thing by many, many pages. Right. Oh, because every idea sounds great in theory. If you're not the human being that has to sit there and
the setup of it in, the thing of it in, the aftermath of it in, how it changes a million different things. Yeah.
I always ask, toward the end of the meeting, anyone have any ideas for cuts?
Right.
And usually you can hear a cricket 2 blocks away.
Writing's hard. Writings can be hard, and trying to figure out all the machinations of every little note is very hard. And there you go. That's the job, though.
The people who are yanking pieces out of the Jenga tower did not build the Jenga tower.
Right.
And so every little thing, a thing they might think is small, you realize, no, that pays off on page 34 and 58 and 71. And now the domino effect is lost on.
I get a note that's annoying and then I write it. Sometimes it's like I can't fight it, and then you write it, and then you add 10 pages to the thing. And then somewhere down the line, either the next draft or the draft after that, somebody's going to give you the note, oh, we got to cut 10 pages out. And then you cut out the 10 pages you just wrote, and people go, oh, this is perfect. Once they've seen the note, they've experienced it, and you pull back, they still feel like the note has been addressed.
This is true. This is true. But I have the most insane version of that. Oh, once you put it in and then they realize, well, maybe it wasn't. I wrote a John Cena movie called Playing with Fire.
I have seen it.
Firefighters.
I was at the premiere, or not the premiere. I was at a gathering of friends of yours.
Oh, that's right.
To go see it at Century City.
Thank you for.
And I consider that a premiere.
It was the LA premiere for sure. The other one was a little, it was in New York City. Right. It was exciting and the whole thing. Okay. 37 drafts of Playing with Fire. It was a Christmas movie.
Right.
Because what's even harder than these macho firefighters having to deal with these 3 rascally kids having
to do it on Christmas,
having to put on a Christmas.
Oh my God, these kids! It's going to be so much pressure because Christmas means so much to children.
Yes, 100%. So Cena comes on board, sold it, the whole thing. They're going to put out at Paramount. They were going to put out Sonic the Hedgehog.
Right.
And they had it slated for that end of November sweet spot. So they say, well, we got to yank the Christmas out of Playing with Fire. Mm-hmm. And it's rewritten, not by me, by the other credited writer on Playing with Fire, who's a lovely guy. All to take Christmas out of it.
Right.
And then the Sonic trailer drops. The fanboys go nuts about Sonic's mouth being stupid.
And then they say, we can't release this at Christmas.
Yeah, we got to reshoot
it.
They got to reshoot Sonic. Yeah. And Sonic, is in cheap to get Sonic back to set. So it ends up, Playing with Fire ends up back in that slot.
Right.
But already filmed with Christmas completely yanked from it. I'm on the red carpet in New York. And the new head of marketing for Paramount, Mark Weinstock, buddy, basketball friend of mine, he comes up on the red carpet and is like, Dan, why wasn't this a Christmas movie? And my head exploded off of my shoulders.
Yeah.
But so Sonic, man, I got it in for Sonic.
I have not seen Sonic yet. I'm saving it for the perfect night. It's like a cup of cocoa.
Yeah. Well, Sonic strangely ended up...
My gal by my side, and then turn on Sonic the Hedgehog.
I've had 2 movies made, and Sonic screwed me on both, and I'll tell you about the other.
All right. Well, tell us right now.
I'll tell you right now. So today is a fun day. I came here directly from an appearance on Good Day Sacramento.
Fantastic. And they love their Christmas movies in Sacramento.
The story before me. So you're watching what being broadcast right before they go to me, and it's a guy in a woman's house in Sacramento, and she's making a honey pumpkin pie for him, and there's Christmas decorations everywhere, and they're like, and now the movie's coming out, and then they go to me, and I talked about it. It was cool. So I have a movie coming out called Dear Santa.
I've seen it. I've seen it. I watched it last night. That's your other Christmas movie. Now, we know it's a great idea. The idea is, originally the title was Dear Satan, correct?
Yes. Originally it was Dear Satan, and the first draft was 19 years ago.
Wow.
And I was a nanny to pay my bills at that point. And my job that day was to have Ben and Ollie of Valley Village make their letters to Santa that day.
Right.
And I was looking down at Ollie's letter, and he didn't do the full misspelling, but the S was backwards.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And it was the first time I really thought about how close Santa and Satan are.
As a dyslexic person myself, they're the same words. Santa and Satan, same words.
That's amazing. You're dyslexic.
Yeah.
I didn't know you're dyslexic. My first boss ever was Stephen J. Cannell, who made basically every television program in the 70s and
famously
80s.
Dyslexic.
Famously dyslexic. And novelist as well.
Yes.
Rest in peace.
Yes.
Also the most tan human being I've ever met. So wear sunblock.
Oh, tan. I mean, I can argue with about 10 people. There was a guy. Do you ever Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In?
Oh yes.
Okay. So Dan Rowan, must have been 7 years old, and I saw Dan Rowan, and I thought he had been in a fire. I thought he had been in some sort of horrible fire accident, and I told my mom, "What's wrong with that man?" And I was like, "No, he's just tan. He's just super tan."
And Stephen lived in Pasadena. He had that Pasadena sun,
right?
Which, if the sun out here is tough in Pasadena,
they call it the Devil's Anvil, Pasadena.
It is. Well, wait, I'm getting beside. So the thing about Dear Santa, it's sitting on this. It's a cadaver as far as I'm concerned. It's the first thing I sold. So I went home after thinking of it. I outlined it. I wrote the first draft, and the Farrelly brothers brought it into Fox. Fox acquired it. It was very exciting. And then from that point, Fox was bought by Disney. The exec had been fired off it. The exec popped up at Paramount, and then went and rescued it, and then got fired again from Paramount. It's just, it's a miracle for anything to roll camera. Right. And he just said, Jeremy Kramer, who never gave up on the producer, he just said it just stayed alive because of the one-liner. Right. Even when it was at the bottom of the development sheet.
Right.
Oh, gave a chuckle.
Sure.
And so eventually Paramount was looking to do things that size, and are the Farrelly brothers still interested? Well, yeah, Bobby wants to direct it still. Okay, well, can you get one of these 5 actors? Right. And they had done Shallow Hal together.
Sure.
And in Jack's work career, you can see a Satan through line here and there musically. Yeah, and he was on Mr. Show appearing as the devil.
And Tenacious D is a big Satan thing.
100%. Yeah. And so suddenly this thing that was, I had already written off as, it's a thing that got me out of nannying.
Right.
It was a good spec. It had votes on the blacklist, which for a Christmas comedy was very rare.
That's huge, yeah.
And it was a calling card thing that would probably never get made. And suddenly it was shooting in my home state of Georgia,
right?
Against all odds, and so then this movie came out. All this is to say is, it was going to come out last year, but there was an actor strike for those of you not in the biz, and they weren't sure if they would have Jack to do promotions. Viral video. Like,
it had been shot already.
Jack does a jumping jack and it goes viral. So the idea of having him is a big deal to promotions and all that. So they don't put it out last year. Well, we'll see about next year. Right. This year, well, they're putting out Gladiator now. Right. And what's coming out right before Christmas? A little thing called Sonic 3.
Sure.
So Sonic, yet again.
Yeah.
So they suddenly find out, because of Gladiator and Sonic, which is not an original film.
Right.
These are franchise.
Right.
Gets more confidence to go into theaters. And suddenly this movie that was pushed, that by the way, in hindsight, the actor strike would have been over. They would have been able to send out Jack 11th Hour. It would have come out, anything. At any rate, this is all hindsight. And I'm really happy it's out.
Yes.
Politically, I'm very happy it's out. And it's a found thing.
Yes.
It was a cadaver on a slab that suddenly...
It's delightful. And it's delightful, and it's not pretentious. It is what it is. Like, it's not, aside from Jack, it's not filled with stars. It's filled with actors, and the kids' actors are really good. and it's a little delight.
Yeah, and to be fair, they made a version which was a lot of people, a lot of kids, stuff with the kids dealing with school life and parents dealing with.
Right.
They saved a lot of money from my draft.
Yeah, I bet.
I mean, my draft was very elf world building.
Right.
What's it like in hell, and what's going on in hell, and who's trying to take over hell, and someone's going to slay Jack.
I wrote a movie with my friend
Jack
Ken
Santa.
Daly called Escape from Hell.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I brought you here not to talk about any of that bullshit.
Please, yes. Oof, God.
Here's my problem. As you know, Don't Be Alone with Jake Hogan is about me talking to smart, interesting people about my problems. And in this particular case, my problem is I don't know that I've had enough difficulty or pushback or adversity in my life. I come from a fairly well-off family. We're upper middle class. I grew up in the Valley in Encino, pretty safe neighborhood. I sailed right into show business. I was producing movies when I was TV shows when I was 22. Like it was just a pretty smooth ride, lack of adversity. And I worry, not worry, but where's the grit? Where's the grit in my life? I don't have grit. And that I've had conversations with you where you talked about your upbringing, and it sounded much tougher. It sounded like you had to overcome so many. Even getting to Denison University sounds like that was going to be a really hard trip. So how did you tell me a little bit about your growing up, and then tell me about how you fought through it and got to where you are now, which is a remarkably bright, interesting, funny, somebody who's sort of invested in humanity and cares about people and, all that kind of stuff. I don't know that everybody from your neighborhood's that way. And so like, where did you start and how did you get here?
Oof. That's an answer. That's a bite off more than you could chew question.
Well, let's take it up into chunks.
Let's break it up into chunks. My parents.
Good place to start.
My parents were both, and I say this with love, failed artists.
Okay.
Both very talented. My mom was actually a wordsmith and a poet, and even when we were living on food stamps, would occasionally get an envelope in the mail because she sold a greeting card idea.
Right.
For $50. She met my dad doing dinner theater in Manhattan as a young hippie.
Sure.
My dad had also an amazing thinker and artist, had dropped out of Brandeis before his senior year.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly they were expecting a shotgun pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
My older sibling got married. That's what she did.
Okay.
Manhattan was tough.
Not all artists got married.
That's true.
That didn't know you have. They sound pretty bohemian.
They got married, and Manhattan was tough to survive. They moved to Miami, and then my dad ended up a postman, delivering mail.
Sure.
My mom doing temp jobs. They were divorced by the time I was 4. Long story short, my dad would be swallowed up by crippling depression, and it's 3 of us in a studio apartment in Miami.
Right.
Covered in cockroaches.
Well, that was you talked about. You said there was a lot of bugs, there's a lot of cockroaches, there's a lot of stuff. And now you're
Sorry. Yeah, I'm triggered by roaches to this day. I said the word roaches and I started crying. So.
Yeah. But I mean, I've sat with you at lunch and you've cried over very little things. So I expect a lot of tears today.
It happens.
But anyway, let's get back to you.
So 2 very brilliant people, and one who ended up locked in their house for the last 15 years of their life, agoraphobic, not even leaving.
Right.
Never having realized his great potential.
Right.
And my mom was always supportive of our art, supportive of my writing,
right.
but had never, gone out and given it that push, and ended up temping and working at assistant in the Montessori school and kind of low key. I've given her poems to my kids to read, and they're freaked out how incredible they are, but just had never, neither of them were able to put it together, but for life things that happen in life, mental illness, all that.
Right.
So I have felt in my life, like I'm finishing a narrative.
Right. Finishing their story.
Right.
Okay. Well, that's a lot of fucking pressure.
I'm talking when my dad passed away.
Yeah. I'm sorry about that.
Thank you. But I remember declaring that out loud.
Yeah.
When I was cleaning up his house, his place, that I'm going to finish your story.
Right.
So
did that involve carrying a lot of
it has
letters back and forth, or no?
No,
Okay.
but it is kind of funny though that a postal mistake is key to Dear Santa.
Well, you are carrying his story.
You're literally
in
shit!
Dear
I just
Santa.
thought of that.
No, it's boom. It's connected.
Yeah.
Done and done. Do you think having your background and the struggle and trying to sort of figure out how to be a real artist, whereas you're sort of living in the legacy of people who tried and maybe didn't get it, has that pushed you forward to do the things that you do?
I want to say you're my favorite kind of person.
Me too. I'm my favorite kind of person
because you're like my favorite trick, because you are, okay, you had family, you were kind of in a way birthed into
Nepo baby.
A Nepo baby. Mm-hmm. But my favorite fucking thing is when a Nepo baby is actually good. It's my favorite fucking thing. Well, you didn't have to necessarily be good to get to some measure of it, but you're fucking good, and that's beautiful. You're talented.
Thank you. I mean, I think it only flows so far. Like if somebody asks a favor of me, will you talk to my kid? I'll say sure, and then will I hire that kid? Maybe not. Like I'll have to. Do they have what it takes? To do, and then. Will that person be then promoted or gone to the next level?
100%.
At some point, you have to have show something.
I think or
cry.
What growing
That's the other
up,
thing. If you cry a lot and say, "Please give me a promotion. I want to be a producer. Let me be a producer." And if you do that enough, then Jim Brooks will make you a producer.
Then he'll make you a producer. Yeah. Well, that's nice. Just to get you out of the office.
Yeah.
It's exciting when I see someone that is actually good, because there are examples of. I'm not even going to say specifically. There are times when I stumble upon a show, or my kids are watching a show, and I look at the performance I'm watching, and I think, this is an asshole thing to think. I think that person knew someone. That person, and I swear I'm batting about 80% that person.
Do you know the difference between a person who knew somebody, a person who is the daughter or son of somebody,
yes,
or somebody who fucked somebody? Like can we differentiate those groupings?
This has always been a daughter or son of someone.
Okay, all right, good.
But so here's what I feel like. Grit.
Yeah.
Was necessary in my case, where I'm substitute teaching, and then I'm a nanny, and then I'm recruiting focus groups or whatever thing to scrape together rent. That grit to never have a plan B.
Yep.
That grit was useful. I would argue that you needed talent and had it.
So I could make a pretty strong case that the growing up in a comedy writer family and being inculcated into the world of what's funny and how it works, I had a pretty huge head start. Even just in terms of joke telling, storytelling, watching the process of how shows got made, like all that education, which happened by osmosis, is a huge, gigantic fucking advantage.
Well, we have a wonderful mutual named John Turtletaub, right? Who's a hilarious example of, was so in the world that he interviewed to be a PA out of film school and just said, "Do you have a director for this? I should direct this."
Right.
And holy shit, they were in a fight about a contract with some C-list director, and they fucking gave John the job. And John has made features ever since and is amazing and wonderful. Right. Our kids were in school together because I cheated, borrowed, and stealed to get my kids into a school they had no business. I mean, there are a lot of kids at that school that don't even fly commercial.
Right,
like it's wild. And so we were there, and John and I got to know each other. We were in the parent band together.
Nice.
And it was a moment. We'd known each other casually. We hadn't really. He sat me down, and I was like, "Where are you from? What were your parents like?" He just did this real inside the actor studio.
Right.
Thing, really. And then he just started cackling, because this is in the Palisades, which is, if you haven't been, it's the closest thing to Mayberry. It's up on this little hill. It's closer than Mayberry, I think,
it's pretty fancy. Much fancier
you're
than
right,
Mayberry.
You're right.
It's like
if there was a hill overlooking Mayberry.
If Mayberry were filled with millionaires, then
it's Payberry.
Yeah.
And so but he just started cackling, and he just said, "You're crashing the party."
Yeah. Yes.
And I will say there's a value to that energy.
Yeah.
If you crash the party with, sounds like such a dickhead. I sound like such a dickhead. If you crash the party with a little swagger, like a grin. This grin, I'm in Tom Hanks's, I'm in the Playtone box at Dodger Stadium, and it's like, this is hilarious.
Yeah.
I shouldn't even be here. But in a fun way.
Sure.
It's not imposter syndrome.
No.
If you kind of, you embrace crashing the party.
Yeah, I mean, I think no one feels like we're entitled to be where we are if you feel luck has shined down on you. Feel like, why me? So everybody has that, why me, but why not me? Okay, and having the swagger or confidence to say why not me is the other part of it. So like, okay, there are 20 seats in that Playtone box.
Right.
Why not you?
Why not? And is there something? And I'm one of the people that have had the shit kicked out of them on a basketball court in fucking Georgia. And that doesn't mean better than them at all.
Right.
Maybe it gave me a little stick-to-itiveness that was useful. Because as we know, I guess that's the difference.
Yeah.
This town feels like such a fucking marathon.
Yes.
And if you were producing shit at 22, maybe it didn't have the feel. It has the feel of a marathon because you've been doing it a long time.
Yeah.
But maybe the marathon didn't have a long portion where you were changing diapers of a kid that wasn't your own.
Although I will say that from the time I was 10 to the time I was 22, I was trying. So it's like, so I did have some period of trying and failing.
When you were 13, no one would hire you to run a television show.
I was trying to act. I was trying to do other things. So I was trying. I was definitely trying.
Yeah, but the industry was a very real, tangible thing. And you walked out your door and there's someone's trailer and some.
And I never got into Tom Hanks's Playtone box.
You never
once. No. I've had a lot of friends who go. I've never been there, and I don't know why. It's Tom Hanks. If you're listening, and you are, because I know this about you. Why? What did Jake Hogan do to you that I've never been invited? And not for nothing, I just listened to Rita Wilson's new album, which is fantastic. And this is, I love music, and I'm a very harsh judge.
Yes,
and she's got this new album that's got duets with Elvis Costello and Jackson Browne, and it's unbelievably great. And I'm saying this fully well knowing that Tom Hanks will never invite me to his fucking Playtone box.
It just doesn't seem right.
Doesn't seem right.
We got to get you into that box.
But
I've seen it. There are like 5 empty seats most nights.
Always. Oh well.
There's a funny when I was maybe this ends up getting cut. I don't know. There was a really funny. I was in the Playtone box.
Yes.
And I was with my best friend, filmmaker friend, James Ponsel, who strange enough, went to Cedar Shoals High School in Athens, Georgia. And we were very much the
That doesn't sound like a show business school, not a tough upbringing.
He's amazing.
This whole grit thing's bullshit.
But we had the stick-to-itiveness.
Yeah.
And he does Shrinking and Daisy Jones and the Six, and he's really well. But so we're sitting we're watching the game, and he's asking me about how I have a project with DiCaprio's company, Appian Way, and it's a big departure from what I normally write.
DiCaprio, a whole different
of the New Hampshire DiCaprio, and it's a historical epic about William Mulholland and the water wars of California. I was a buff, and I sat down and wrote this thing, and it's blah blah blah, and it's to actors now, and maybe fingers crossed. But I'm sitting there, and James is asking me how it's going. And I'm saying, it's really excited about it because it's got like thematic elements of There Will Be Blood, but it's just not drudgery. You know how you see There Will Be Blood once and you never have to see it again because it's just fucking so dark and all that. And this has levity, unlike There Will Be Blood. And I realize I'm like go on for like a minute and a half, and James starts going,
yes. Paul Thomas.
PT is 6 inches behind me, sitting, wolfing down a Dodger dog.
Right.
And I turned and waved politely. To this day, I hope the crowds were loud enough where it wasn't clear what I was saying. But it was really funny to bag on a masterwork.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that can only happen in a place like the Playtone box where
I've had that experience before.
Yeah.
I was on a strike with my friend John Vitti, and we're walking carrying signs, and there's a big poster for the Chipmunk movie. As we're walking around, and I'm like, the Chipmunk movie? Who the fuck wants to see the Chipmunk movie? Who would write that? And then he's just walking and talking, and at some point, well into 15, 20 minutes of me shitting on the Chipmunk movie, he says, I wrote the Chipmunk movie. So, and I did that to you once. You were writing Ernest movies, and we were in Las Vegas, and you were saying, I'm trying to revive the Ernest movies. And I was like, why would anyone want to revive the Ernest movies? But
yeah,
I don't know.
It happens, and that's a. I love the Chipmunk movie though.
I'm an asshole.
The Chipmunk movie was better than people think.
Yeah.
David Cross, amazing performance.
Yeah.
I have found the more I'm legitimately in the business, the less I'm, I don't know, nannying.
Yeah.
That I've come to realize, stop saying shit about and no one wanted their shit to suck.
Right.
No one wanted their shit to suck.
Exactly.
So, and by the way, what they initially came to the table with might have been great. And 78 cooks joined making the broth.
Right.
And stop talking shit about the final
It's all hard. And I have great sympathy. But even at the end of that, even though it's hard, and even at the end of it is, as a consumer of entertainment, I don't want it to be shitty. So I think we have the right, even after that, to go like, you know what? That's shitty.
Yes. But people are scared of, and I think a lot of executives are scared of tonal width.
Yeah.
That if it's a comedy, you can't have a gut punch moment. And if it's a serious drama, you can't have a moment where it's a little funny.
And that misses the whole point of it. Because if you're having comedy and you don't have that gut punch moment, then you don't have a great movie. And you need a few laughs in the middle of, like, some of the funniest moments I've ever had were in the middle of Sophie's Choice. Like, oh wait, no, I'm wrong about that. Sophie's Choice had no jokes.
No jokes.
No jokes.
They took out the pratfall.
They did.
Huge mistake.
But Schindler's List, pretty funny. I have the blooper reel for Schindler's List. No, there's a lot of things that are not funny, but maybe couldn't have taken the joke. But a lot of great jokes in the middle of things.
Well, if you've noticed, I have a Norman Lear on my hat.
Yes.
Who is a mentor of mine, and I got to work with him before he left this
The new
realm.
show that you have coming out, Clean Slate, right? Is that the name of it?
Clean Slate.
Clean Slate. That's a show that was Norman was an executive on, right?
100%.
Okay.
And I remember I went to Norman with George Wallace, comedian George Wallace, who's one of my...
Not the racist governor, George Wallace?
No, I tried to get him, but I could only get the comedian George Wallace. And we went into Norman and did what everyone does. Promptly asked for an IP from him.
Right.
Can we have Sanford and Son? Mm-hmm. The hell are you going to do with Sanford and Son? So I pitched Sanford and Daughter.
Right.
Which is the same, ultimately, story as Clean Slate. But he said, I'm not giving Sanford and Son to anyone. And my heart kind of fell for a second. And then he said, but that's a great fucking idea, kid.
Okay.
And occasionally, if we're blessed enough in this industry, we have a moment where we could say, take me, God, right now. And that was when the person behind so many shows I ended up watching in rerun and watching it, like, says, that's a great fucking idea, kid.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What a great story.
And just believed this was a story that needed to be told, a conversation,
right? Yeah,
that we should have, and went in there with Laverne Cox a few weeks later,
right?
And as I started to piece it all together, and Norman asked Laverne questions for 2 hours,
right?
Some very personal, some Laverne said, "I'd rather not." Next question, and it was just was so. My God, at that point, he was 98.
Yeah.
And was still so curious about life and about it. What's next? His whole thing was what's next?
Right.
What's next? What's next? And that kept him alive. What's next? I was always a next. And he sat there and he said, how am I 98 years old? And I've just learned something so much about something so important.
Yeah.
And Norman said, can I please tell this story with you? Can I please tell this story?
That's fantastic.
And it was talking about pinching yourself. Like,
yeah.
And you're working on something with Norman, and then there's moments where you're like, yeah, no, not that idea, Norman. Right. But if we did, and then you're like, holy shit, am I fucking qualified to? You are. Which is a whole nother.
Right. It is.
Like, could you? Right. But he was so collaborative, and that was a dream
he was
come
amazing.
True.
I met him several times, and when he turned 100, I got a chance to tell, because there were so many people cheering it, and there was many honors and tributes and everything. At a certain point, I think I was with Phil Rosenthal, somebody's house, said, Norman, it's amazing you're here. Enough. We're done. No more awards. No more anything. You've had it. You've done it all. I cannot watch another fucking award show awarding you for just turning 100. You've done it. You're done. And he agreed.
He agreed, but I'm also hopeful that he might posthumously have another go around at the award shows this coming year.
All right. Well, Dan, thank you for that. I want to congratulate you on the Clean Slate. I'm very much looking forward to it. Congratulations on the Dear Santa movie that came out. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Now we're going to move on to listener mail.
Now it's time for listener mail.
This is a question that came in not specifically for you, but came in to dbawjk@gmail.com. So if you have a question, send it to that. Please make a question up. Send a question. I need various people. I have 3 people who send me, just the same 3 people send me questions all the time. I have over 20,000, 40,000 listeners to any given episode. We're doing great. People are loving the podcast. But write in. It doesn't take a second to write in a question at dbawjk@gmail.com with your questions and your suggestions and your compliments and cash if you want to give it. All right. Anyway, here's a question from Holly, who's one of the people who gives many questions. It says, Dear Jay and guest, do you have any advice about how to get past traumatic events in your past? Is there an apropos amount of time to think about your past, after which the healthiest thing to do is to move on?
Moving on is so vague and dangerous.
Yeah.
It's been my experience that burying something traumatic has its own cost. And you can bury it for an amount of time, but it will bubble up in its own ways. We live in a world where there are 20 different coping techniques, routes, therapy, MDMA, you name it, that you can find what might work for you to help you work through it. But I don't recommend burying something. Those who I know who have buried it.
Yes. How does it appear back? How does it slap back on those people?
Ooh, on the light end, some OCD stuff. On the control issues, on the more serious end, bipolar disorder. Like it festers. These things fester. Well,
there's your grit. That's how I can get grit. I'll take my shit and bury it and see what happens.
I would vote for proactivity.
All right.
And it will exist as part of your texture. I don't think anyone would talk about it's like putting it behind you, but it's how to treat it like this was a horrible thing that happened to me. And guess what? Now it's sort of fuel. Now I'm work on it. Right. Now I can see what it's done to my, like, I don't want to get in a long-term relationship because of what this person did to me. Or I don't want to, like, if you're dealing with it actively, then you can work around its impact better. But I think if you just swallow that, I haven't found that to be successful in the long term.
Well, I will say that you can bury things as long as you're willing to eat through your problems. So as long as the food is there to sort of assuage your pain, you can get through anything. Am I right, people? No, I understand. That's people. Everybody has different coping mechanisms. Some are more successful than others.
Very true.
And some are more harmful than others.
But sending you love, Holly.
Yes.
For whatever this is.
Yeah.
And if it's I hope it's something that you find a way to work with as part of it. Made you who you are in some way.
Yes.
And not always in ways that wreck your shit. Like it made you it made you stronger in some ways.
That's true.
Whatever it is.
She had the strength to remember dbawjk at gmail.com. At dbawjk@gmail.com. It's impossible to say. Ryan, why did you stick me with this email? Producer Ryan enforced that email upon me. No, he keeps saying to change it to something much more readable and doable. But I refuse. Let's talk about the moment of joy.
A moment of joy.
What gives you joy? What's something that you can push in on and just when you need to feel good, you know how to do that?
This is something I've started doing, and I call it the anti-scroll. Mm-hmm. Increasingly, we live in a world that feeds us little sugar pellets, whether it's funny prank videos or a mouse befriended a baboon video.
I don't know what just happened there.
A mouse befriended a baboon. It's my new character.
That's your new character?
It's pleasure to meet you, Lauren Michaels. My first character is person obsessed with mouse befriending baboon.
Okay, so that's the character. That's the person who watched the mouse, but is kind of a little upset about it. I don't know. Okay.
It's a mouse.
All right.
But like, it is all designed to just keep us scrolling.
Right.
In every down moment. And I'm talking about down moments, waiting for to be called into the dentist or, like these down moments. And what I've started to do as an anti-scroll what I do in those moments is I scroll to the bottom of my text messages. So the people I haven't been in touch with for the longest.
Right.
And text them something beautiful.
Oh, that's nice.
Text them that you love them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it's a challenging time.
Yep.
But like, it's remarkable how many times people write back like, I really needed to hear that.
Right.
And wow, what a better, as exciting as it is that a baboon befriended a mouse.
Right.
My God, what a better use to just drop a note to someone that you haven't seen in a long time, you haven't talked to in a long time.
But think about the connection you would make if you shared the video of the baboon and the mouse.
That's the second part. You get to, through a few texts, you're ready to sign off, you don't know how. Perfect segue, a perfect way to sign off. Baboon mouse video.
Now, have you ever received like a negative reaction or a surprise, like, wow, Dan, I didn't know you were even remembered me or something? What's the
occasionally and they'll say, wow, it's been a while. Well, there's an assumption that you might need something, and which is more of an indictment of the world we live in or the city we live in. It's like, oh God. Hey, how you doing? Oh, it's great to be in touch. Listen, I need help with could you get this pilot to a buyer? Could you take this thing out on the town? It's like, why? I thought you were just.
But I'm also not against that, by the way. If somebody texts me because they need something, okay.
It's all how someone does it.
Yeah.
I love it when someone says, hey, before you say anything, yes, I'm going to ask you for a favor, but how the fuck are you?
Right.
I'm totally down with that because we do. I don't mind being reached out to.
Right.
You know?
I mean,
but it's all tact. It's all tact, by the way. That's part of it.
We all need help. We all need to help each other, lift each other up.
100%.
Yeah.
And by the way, and they were bold. They reached out. One of my mottos is when in doubt, reach out. So I don't begrudge them at all, as long as they understand when I say, send it to me. I'll put it in my things to read folder, which currently has 71 things in it, and I will try to read it.
What's the greatest reaction you've had from when you've reached out, when you've gone scroll down to the thing? What's the highlight reaction that you've had from somebody?
A friend of mine was considering killing themselves.
Wow. That's amazing. And
and then it became much longer.
I presume you helped stop that.
No, I failed.
Oh, wow.
It's the point that I tried.
That was not the ending I thought it was going to happen.
No, in fact, I spitballed methods, ways.
Well, that's it now. Now I would think you would go another way.
No. No. But so that was the highlight point of that this person needed a tether, and had found themselves without one, and you can be that.
Did you get them help?
We talked through a whole lot of stuff and a new way to look at things, and now I know they're doing much better. And they talk about being reached out to as an important turning point for them. And and so that's it's hard on this rock spinning around through space. It's hard. And
I need to stop ignoring the texts I get where people saying, I'm thinking of killing myself. Now I've learned that lesson.
It's not a bit. Once 7 friends proved it wasn't just a bit they're doing.
No, I know. I've had a bunch of friends who've left this plane, and the way it. I used to be really mad about it. I used to get really angry at them for doing it, and then I had sympathy where it's like, okay, well, you must have been in incredible pain, and also knowing it's a disease. It's a disease that overtakes you.
My favorite singer-songwriter is a guy named Vic Chestnut, who was quadriplegic, and ended up taking his own life. And he had a lyric that was just, I respect the man who goes to where he wants to be, even if he wants to be dead. Yeah. I mean, it's a complicated thing.
Sure.
And we've all known people that have stepped to themselves, as we would say.
Well, I will say that this is the saddest moment of joy we've ever had on the show. So I will just
but the joy is potentially stop.
It's all sad. You've cried 50 times, and we've had a moment of joy that includes suicide.
I cried. I've cried during pitching a Heathcliff movie.
Oh, I know. I'm a big crier myself. I cry at bank commercials. I cry at really dumb stuff.
Because life is hard. And it's all
we
real.
Get touched. And why do you think we cry? We cry when we're touched about something, when we see a truth that touches us and we feel it. And sometimes we're crying for ourselves, and sometimes we're crying for our friends, but this is, it's good to be in touch with those emotions. 100%. I mean, you're a fucking pussy.
Instead of shoving them all the way down.
Exactly. You don't
like
shove
Holly
them.
Implied at the end of her.
You gotta face them, or go to Pink's, which is 2 blocks down, and then you don't have to face them.
I mean, what a great food town.
It's
Can we on the depression front? What a great food town of all the towns.
Yeah, L.A. is a pretty good food town.
Yeah,
Well, Dan, let me tell you this. Thank you for being here.
Mm.
We're wrapping things up here. I'm wrapping things up.
Sounds like it. Sign off.
I love your humanity. I'm a huge fan of your humanity. And I've noticed it from, I won't say day one, from like year 10. From year 10 on. After we've known each other for 20 years, from year 10 on, I've noticed your humanity. Even the grace with which you talked to me about the Dodgers when they were getting their asses kicked by the Braves. Like you didn't throw it in my face. You just said, you know, hey, what's the score? It's not important. He said it's not important. We're listening to the game or something, but backstage, it's not important. It's fine. You know, we're winning a little. It's fine. But you were very kind. You were very sweet, and I appreciate that. And you have a beautiful family, and been a pleasure getting to know you better through our mutual friend John Turtletaub and through sort of the world of improv we share. So that's been great.
Thank you. You have all the grit you need.
Okay.
And you are talented as hell. And
you don't know that.
You've kicked ass.
You don't know how talented I am.
I don't feel like you're missing anything because you didn't get your ass beat on a basketball court.
Well, thanks for being here. And thank you for being here. I'm going to find a camera. Thank you for being here. It's really a pleasure. It's been great to have a lot of great reaction to the show. People seem to be loving it, and I love hearing about it. And so please write to me at DBAW. Please write to me at dbawjk@gmail.com with your suggestions and questions. Share the show, like the show, subscribe to the show, do all those things. And we're building every week, every month, and I really appreciate it. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Don't be alone.